Welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt. An important trend these days is the emergence of small, artisan-style cottage bakeries all over the country doing extraordinary work, usually with sourdough. Today's guest, Garrett McPerry, is one of those bakers, and he, along with his wife Lauren, are doing it in Redondo Beach, California, making mind-blowing breads, pastries, bagels, sandwiches, and of course, pizzas. They started out as a cottage bakery, selling at farmers markets, and then made the big, scary leap 2 years ago to brick and mortar. We're going to find out how they pulled off the leap and maybe learn some of the secrets behind those gorgeous, delicious products. So, Garrett, welcome to Pizza Quest, and congratulations on the success of Tommy and Atticus.
Well,
We're going to find out, yeah, and I want to find out the origin of that name in a minute. That's the name of your bakery, Tommy and Atticus. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but I want to find out about that. But before we start on that, can you tell us just how scary it was to make that leap from cottage to brick and mortar and how you pulled it off?
Thanks for having me, Peter. Very excited.
Sure.
Yeah, that leap was it was the scariest moment so far. Like just the biggest leap that I've had to make in my life. It was like that and quitting my accounting profession were like the two biggest scary leaps that I had. The brick and mortar one, it took over a year of searching for places to find one that would even accept our application. And yeah, I mean it was scary. But at that point I had done enough legwork in my accounting background where I knew it could be successful, but you never really know until it happens. So like that unknown, putting all the blood, sweat, and tears into it and hoping that the community embraces it the way that you hope they will. Like it's so daunting.
And then you've probably got, all your savings and all the money you've raised and invested into this thing. And it's all built on the success of the responses you got at farmers markets and the local customers that you sort of developed.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that was, while it was incredibly scary opening up the brick and mortar, me with my accounting background, I tried to do everything as measured as possible. So I tried to do each little baby step to test the markets to see if it was going to be successful or not. So like I initially started out of our home in just our home ovens, baking a couple loaves. And then once that was successful, I bought some larger equipment that was made for the home production environment. And then that was successful. And then I went to farmers markets. So I slowly kept building my brand and the product. So I knew we were selling it for over 3 years at Hermosa Beach, which is the neighboring city to Redondo, the Friday farmers market. And I would bring like 80 to 100 loaves of bread and 200 pastries and sell out in 2 to 3 hours. So I knew the nearby community liked our product. So it gave me like the confidence to go to that extra step. But yeah, it's still, as I like anyone that wants to, that's why I'm so supportive when I see anyone trying to open a restaurant. Like I always reach out and be like, if I can help out, like even giving you just a shoulder to like commiserate with.
Well, that sort of arc of going from baking, for fun and for friends, out of your home, taking it to a place, getting great feedback and kind of growing it and suddenly realizing, hey, wait a minute, I'm good at this. I can do that. You didn't come into it from a culinary background. You didn't come in, as a culinary school guy or a bakery guy. You were an accountant, as you said first. Where did you learn this craft? Because this is not something you just pick up from a book. Oh, some people do, but not too many.
Well, surprisingly, you can. It's the longer, harder. Yeah. So the origin. So I've always liked baking and cooking. So like in middle school, my dream was to open up an ice cream restaurant. So an ice cream shop. So I'm not too far off of like my childhood dream. But went to college, and it was in 2016 where I watched the thing that started my whole bread journey was in 2016 watching a Netflix documentary by the author Michael Pollan called Cooked.
Oh yeah, that's a great
authored book. His same book by the same title, Cook, and that was what there was 4 episodes. One episode was on air, and that was focusing on fermentation and bread, and that was And then at the end of the mini series, he encouraged every viewer to take one piece of food and learn how to bake it from scratch, because his whole thing was food and culture are intertwined. And if you don't cook, you can slowly lose part of your culture. So this was his call out to be like, hey, just like learn how your food is made, friend. So uh I was like, yeah, I like bread. Like, let me try to make sourdough. And I totally thought this was just going to be like a weekend baking project where I was like,
Yeah.
gonna like in one. I knew nothing about sourdough bread other than I liked it. So I thought I was just gonna make my sourdough starter on Saturday and have bread by like dinner time on Saturday. And it ended up taking me over a full month just to make my starter healthy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go to culinary. I was like going on blogs and Instagram, like, how do you make a starter? So I was like, took me over a month just to make a starter. And my wife and best friend Tommy was like, when are we ever going to get bread? I thought we were going to have bread like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. What's going on here? Why does it take it so long?
Finally was able to make that loaf of bread. And that was like what, and being the baking has a very numbers oriented approach to it. And it was like lends itself to accounting. So I had all my spreadsheets and with my baker's math. So my first loaf of sourdough actually turned out fairly decent, but
Uh-huh.
being the accounting person I am, I had all my spreadsheets and I was like, maybe if I would have increased the hydration 2%,
There you go.
ended the bulk ferment. And so
You started to think like a baker then.
yeah, that's real cool. Accounting to baking.
Well, I'm guessing that when you finally got that sourdough starter perfected, that you named it after your friend Tommy. Is that what happened?
Yeah, so it all started, Tommy and Atticus all started as a, like, the names they're my two, I have two starters named Tommy and Atticus, so that's that's the short answer.
Well, we know who Tommy is, but who's Atticus?
Atticus was our next door neighbor's dog. Uh
I was thinking how to be a dog in here or something.
uh but the reason I named it Tommy was that it was just a bad joke because I was an accountant and during busy season I would be working 60, 70 hours a week, and with the sourdough starter, you need to refresh it, feed it 2 times a day, kind of literally. So I thought that if I named the starter after my roommate and best friend, that like he would be more inclined to help me with my bread hobbies. So if it was tax season and I was working late, I'd just be like, "Yo, Tommy, like I'm not going to be home in time. You got to feed yourself tonight."
Right. Feet on it. That's cool. That's a great story. You know, that reminds me of something that happened to me years ago. This is like over 25 years ago when I was teaching in the campus of Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode Island, the bread class. There were two bread classes, and the other bread instructor had a starter that he had spent time developing and had it worked on, and he used it in his class, and he named it after his best friend, Kenny. So he called his starter Kenny. And then every day he would have his students, make a batch of sourdough bread, and he would tell them what to, and he'd say, now, after you mix everything up, pull some of the starter out we'll build it up for next time. And one of the kids went ahead and made the bread, but forgot to pull out the starter, and suddenly used up all the starter in the dough.
Yeah.
And he says, well, where's Kenny? And he goes, what are you talking about? He says, where's the starter you were going to pull out? He says, it's all in the bread. And he goes, oh my God, you killed Kenny. And the whole class bursts out in laughter, because they knew about, and he didn't never heard of, what's the show, South Park, or he never heard of Kenny, but the whole class did. And finally they clued him in. So he called me and he said, my class killed Kenny. What should I do? So I said, I'll tell you what, I've got a little starter in I have my own starter. I'll give you some, just call it Kenny Jr. And you got it going again, but,
Nice.
But giving it a name like that really does personalize the experience.
Yeah, personalize it, and since you have to twice a day, like it literally becomes like our like baker's like a little surrogate pet for us. So we'll
Yeah.
take care of it.
What's the difference between Tommy and Atticus?
There is absolutely zero difference. It's just my accounting brain wanting to have the assurance policy of that way. If Tommy, since I feed him the same flour, they're in the same bakery. If Tommy ever unfortunately passed away, like if someone used all the starter, we would have Atticus that we could refresh it for.
I see. So it's not like you keep two different starters for different purposes. One starter for all your products.
One starter, yeah. So everyone's getting a little bit of Tommy and Atticus in each that they try.
That's great. Well, again, it's another way for people to connect with what you're doing, and I'm sure that they do.
Yeah.
Aside from enjoying the products themselves. Uh, so this is pretty cool. So, but meanwhile, you taught yourself. You're figuring it out as you go along. Did you do any time? Did you put any work in at a bakery to kind of see how they do it in the
Yep.
so-called real world?
Correct. Yeah. So my like the journey on how I got there was, yeah. So 2016 started baking bread. That was when I was just baking bread. November of 2017 was when I had been baking so much bread that my friends and family were like, if there were a way to buy this, I would do it because it's good and I like it. So that was when I
Those are the words that drive everyone down the rabbit hole.
So that's when I officially formed. I filed with the health department and formed my cottage food license, and then I started selling the bread. So then for 2 full years, I was working a full-time CPA job, and 2 days a week, I would get home from the office and I would mix the dough, wake up at 3 a.m., bake off the loaves that had been proofing, and then deliver them before going to the client's office again. So did that for 2 full years,
Wow.
and then that was when, before, honestly, even more scary than opening up the bakery was the decision to leave the accounting field. So that was because I knew I loved baking. It was all I would talk about. And my wife was very encouraging and said, we're young. We don't have any debt at the moment. If we want to do something crazy, now's the time to do it. She's like, and if you try baking at a commercial setting and realize you hate it, like, you're still a CPA. You can go back to being an accountant. Like,
Yeah, you do have a plan B in place.
yeah. So July 2019, I quit my accounting job at Armanino, and then I went and I started working full time at Justa. So that was where I was like, I didn't have the skill set to be confident enough to just go from baking 4 loaves a day to opening up a bakery. And I knew I needed that skill set, and I needed to know if I liked doing it full time. So
Yeah.
that was where I got a job there. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I mean, any baker out there would say it's just that's baking world, but like my days off were Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I worked 2 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And yeah, I learned so much. I was specifically on the bread team. So Justa, a big operation. They have like a whole hot food section. They have a full bakery, and then they have just a bread department. So I only was on the bread department, where we were shaping all the bread dough. I learned how to operate the commercial bread bakery at scale. So I learned how to use all the equipment and just got the repetition, because that's the hardest part with
Right.
baking or cooking in general. Like, it's just the repetition. When I have sourdough enthusiasts come to the bakery and they're asking me, how do I get, like, I feel good, but like my shaping's not great. I'm like, you gotta just do it all the time. Like,
Right.
whatever, like, bake 2 loaves instead of baking 1 loaf at a time. Bake 2 loaves because it doesn't take much more energy. You get some extra practice. Do it weekly. So, working at Justa, we were baking 500 to 700 loaves of bread a day, getting just the repetition, the hand motions down. So you just get those dough hands where you just understand how the more innate sense where you're not like, you can just like touch the dough and you're like, oh yeah, we need the bulk ferment it for another 30 more minutes and stuff. So that really.
Is Justa, is it like also like a restaurant? Is it or is it?
It's Juiced is a full bakery. It's part of the Jelena restaurant group. So there's Jelena, GTA, Jelena Takeout, and then Justa. So Justa originally opened to be the commissary of Jelena, where we were making the dough, like the pizza dough for Jelena.
I see.
They're so popular that they added a full hot bar section. Justa is like, gives closer to like New York deli vibe. So you order at the counter, there's a full cold display and everything, but they have open concept. You can see everything happening. So yeah,
It's great because you got a chance to, kind of absorb by being there, how they do it at that scale. But I'm looking at your menu, at the Tommy and Atticus menu, and you've got lots of pastries. You've got a number of different breads. Do you make all those breads every day? The country loaf to the super seed to the honey whole wheat. Is all those a daily offering?
Yeah, if you're looking at our menu, that is about like eight or nine bread loaves that we're making daily. There's we have for our primary like country loaf based ones. So we have our plain sourdough country loaf, seeded polenta, pepita, rosemary, garlic, and cheddar jalapeno.
Yeah.
Those five are like our staple ones, and those all use the same dough. And then during the when we do the stretch and folds, we do three of them. That's when we incorporate the additional mix-ins to it.
I
So
see.
the way to offer some variety but still not overcomplicating it for our bakers, to try to make it efficient.
So
Yeah.
so then you can do like this. Yeah, the cinnamon
Yeah,
raisins and
those like, and then we have our five staples, and then the honey whole wheat raisin cinnamon swirl. Those ones we mix separately, as well as our pizza dough. That's also a separate mix. Because
okay. So your pizza dough is not the same as your sourdough.
yeah, it's still the pizza dough. We still is a slow fermented sourdough. But it is a different base dough than our plain sourdough. Because they are different. Like our sourdough is hydrated to 85% hydration, where our pizza dough, I believe, is more in like the 74% hydration.
You're starting to answer the questions that were all the people who are listening who are geeks about pizza and bread want to know. They want to know hydration. They want to know how that dough feels. So you work at a really high hydration with your basic dough, your bread dough. So
I believe for our sourdoughs, yeah, our pizza is, or yeah, for the countries and our like our sourdough loaves, those are highly hydrated in like the 85% hydration,
like a ciabatta quality.
Yeah, not quite. I mean, because when I was at Justa, we'd also make a ciabatta, and that was at like 95% hydration. So,
what kind of flour? That's because that flour has got to be part of
yeah,
formula. How it absorbs.
Yeah, we use all central milling flour at our bakery.
Oh, wow.
So it's a
good friends of ours. Yeah,
great product, all organic, which is just a nice added feature for our customers and for the product itself. So our country plain sourdoughs, those are a mixture of the central milling high mountain flour, like their high gluten bread flour. That's about I think that's about 14% protein content.
Yeah.
And then the T85 flour. So it's a roughly like 50-50 blend of those two. So we still get some of like the whole wheat benefits of the T85, but it's not 100% whole wheat, so it's easier to work with. And so yeah, blending those two, and then our pizza dough has 4 different flours in it. So it's the High Mountain, the T85 dark rye flour, and some AP beehives. So
interesting.
All just mixing different ones because pizza, when we're stretching it, because we do actually every day at 1:30 is when we sell our pizzas. So we close the pizza's like the final offering of the day, the final meal offering. And so we don't serve like an individual 12-ounce round. We like do like a sheet tray style where it's the size of a commercial baking sheet. And then we get 8 large slices out of it, and we do a chef's choice. So we needed a dough that was like pretty extensible. So that's why we added the rye to it. Like I think it's like 10-15% rye flour in it, something a lot around those lines.
That's
so
it's pretty high amount actually. It gives it
so we just
earthy tone.
Yeah. We needed it to be extensible enough so that we could stretch it to the size of a commercial baking sheet and not tear during that process. So yeah.
So when you say that they're kind of in a sheet pan, is it like a square pan?
They're not they're just the size of that. We pull it out on like a wood tray. It still has it's not a Detroit style or a grandma pie that's like crust. It just comes, that's like we try to roughly stretch it to the size of the commercial sheet pan, but we bring it out on like the wood proofing boards.
So kind of like a big oval, or is it?
Yeah, a big rectangle, honestly, with rounded corners on it, and then we'll get 8 slices out of it. Our pizza is honestly, of our menu, it's the one that we offer the chefs the most creative freedom on, because we don't have a set. The unique or fun part is that we don't have a set pizza menu. It's whatever the pizza chef wants to do is like he can. So they're every about if you show up at 1:30 at our restaurant, that's when our first pizza comes out of the oven. And then it's every 5 to 10 minutes there's another pizza coming out, and there'll be 8 slices out of it. So we'll probably on like the weekends we'll sell about maybe between like 5 to 9 of those like full pizzas. And it's just pizza by the slice. It's a way for our team to have some creative freedom. And we also do the chef's choice because it allows us to look in our walk-in fridge and see like hey, what's like, because we every week it's all like cascading, because every week we have a rotating lunch sandwiches, and those rotate. We have one meat and one veggie, and those will rotate each week. So there'll be a different offering each week. So if say we had, I don't know, we had basil was on last week's basil, and we had some olives, and then those are left over, we can like, all right, cool, let's how can we incorporate that into like our pizza menu the following week. So
Right. So
so trying.
so when people come in for the pizza, it's going to be every day. It could be a different experience for them.
Yeah,
Adventure,
yeah.
and they basically are trusting themselves to
Yeah.
putting themselves in your hands. Well, but when you started out, you were doing sort of the cottage thing, and you're making mainly bread loaves and selling that. You weren't doing all of these other things. How did you conceive the menu? And so, how did that come into development? Because I'm looking here, you got the sourdough bread, you've got two sandwiches every day, one with meat, one with veggie, and I was reading the descriptions of this week's sandwich, and it looks spectacular. Then you've got all these pastries that you do, cookies and croissants and kouamen and you name it. You got a lot of stuff. Um, and then you've got the pizzas, and you almost stage them. Like you don't start serving the pizzas till probably most of the sandwiches are almost sold out right in there.
Yeah, we try to. That's why it's about roughly 1:30 is once most of the sandwiches sell out. But going back to just how I even got, yeah, because obviously the menu, the bakery's a lot bigger than just sourdough bread.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
So
pretty extensive menu. Yeah,
when
and a coffee bar too.
and a full coffee bar, that was important for us. But when I was working at Justa, my goal was always to open up a retail bakery. That was like the dream end goal. So on my days off, I would go and stage at different bakeries around LA and California. So that was where I'd go to like Above and Grandma's, I'd go to Clark Street, I would go to Wayfair down in San Diego, and I would just work stage at those places, learn their processes, and just get mentorship from other people in the profession. And that was where I learned through doing that process of like meeting other bakery owners that my true goal was to open a retail bakery, which that was what I was hoping for, was that bringing in perfecting and having a full pastry menu is critical to success for any retail bakery. Because while while we do have amazing bread, most people are going to be buying a loaf of bread once, like 1 or 2 loaves a week, and that's going to sustain them for their full family. But if you have a great coffee and pastry program, people can come in daily or every other day, pop in for a coffee and a couple pastries, or bring that to the office. So, and like I love pastries, so that was the real drive to perfect and learn pastries. So I didn't actually have all my professional baking experience was with sourdough bread and the bread dough world. Once what happened to me was I worked during the start of COVID, I got furloughed at Justa, and that was when I just made the decision to go full force into the cottage food brand, Tommy Atticus. So I had already been tinkering with some croissants, but I just at home started tinkering with my croissant recipe. And at that point, I was just in an apartment up in West LA. So I was literally hand laminating all my croissants. I was mixing it in a tiny little Bosch stand mixer. And I had my Plugra butter that I was getting from my rep, and having a little rolling pin and rolling it out, like making only 12 croissants at a time, and just figuring it out as I go. Like once you're at like, even though croissants and bread are different, like you still kind of just start getting like your baker's sense where you're like, how I could like manipulate these to get it to where I wanted. So
Well,
that was
I look at all the photos on your Instagram,
yeah.
and the products really look beautiful, and the croissant. I always look, first thing I look for is always at a croissant is that yeah, that honeycomb quality, and the I call it the accordion effect of her, and I go, this guy knows what he's doing, because not every place knows how to make good croissants, and if
Yeah.
you do it, but you got to have a feeling for it, and it seems like all of these things, you worked at it, but you brought a feeling for the dough to each of these products.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it is like I just think of baking, especially at the artisan level, it is like part science, part art, where like you need to have the technical like understanding of like how things are interacting, but like there's kind of like you need to be able to be fluid with it and understand, especially we're not in full temperature controlled environments. So like each day the humidity may be a little different, understanding how to like when it feels tight, what am I going to do to rest that dough so that I can relax it and stretch it out. So there is you have an art and science of it. So
And you also had to learn. I mean, you're probably using a sheeter now, right? To
yeah,
roll.
so my progression was
Yeah,
literally from a rolling pin, and then when I had scaled up to farmers markets, I had bought a hand crank laminator where I was like literally would crank it through, and it that was able to then get some consistency where I was able to sheet it down to specific, like, all right, I want 4.2 millimeters down
right.
product. And now we have a Technosmatic or where we have our reversible dough sheeter, and
Yeah,
yeah, and so
it
we
makes life easier, but you still have to learn how to drive those machines.
have to learn how to drive them. You need to know, even if you have all the equipment, you still need to have like the technical know-how and know like you want the dough and the butter to be roughly the same temperature and consistency. Because if the dough's too hard when you go to laminate it, it's going to shatter, and
Yeah,
then or if it's too warm, it's going to melt in, and you're going to just have a brioche essentially. So,
right.
uh,
How many people do you have working for you? Because you guys to train them as well. That's another part of things that people don't think about when they go. A bit. You've got to expand it into a full time business. You've got employees now, and you have to train them to do it as well as you want to do it.
yeah, and have them. It was like my goal is always like when I'm bringing on people, I'm like, if they can care about this bakery and stuff like half as much as I care about it, like then we're doing a good job. Like, and hopefully even more than that. But like I know, like I have my blood, sweat, and tears into this
Right.
business. Like it's unreasonable to ask everyone to be that committed. Uh, but yeah, so we in total between front of house and back of house, we have 22 employees working at the bakery.
Wow.
There's in total 13 people that are in the back of house bakers, between prep bakers, our bagel line cooks, and then our bread bakers and our croissant team, the pastry team. So everyone's working in concert, and that's truly was like where my experience like staging at different bakeries was so invaluable to me, because I I knew I had the sense of what it took to run a bakery, but leading up to the opening, like, because you never know how long construction's going to take. So it's like I couldn't like that was the hard part. Is like I can't bring on people, I can't fully hire people until I know we're like 4 weeks out from opening. But how do I know we're 4 weeks out from opening? So it was like that cat and mouse game. So I was like having had worked at different bakeries, feeling like just I leaned really heavily on my connections that I had made,
Yeah.
asking general managers at other bakeries like, hey, we're getting ready to open, like, you're in the business, do you have any friends that know this, that are looking to move somewheres? So that was extraordinarily helpful. So I had
Yeah.
there were two different bakers that I brought on with me that had worked with me at Justa, and they followed me. They followed like my cottage food journey as I was selling at farmers markets, and we kept in contact. And they had made known, they're like, hey, like we always had a good relationship when we were working together at the bakery. If something happens, seriously, like we would love to come join you. So that was so invaluable having like people that I had previously worked with in a commercial setting, like that I knew and trusted. I was like, oh, these guys, they literally trained me when I were at Justa. Like I know they know what they're doing. And then our croissant team, they were they were recommendations from a kitchen manager that I had met during all my stages. So they had worked extensively at other bakeries in the LA area and worked in commercial settings. So uh that it was very helpful having people that knew the flow of a commercial bakery. Like I still had to get them trained on like the specific what like my recipe and like what I wanted to do, but I wasn't like they knew how to operate a sheeter, and so I wasn't starting at ground zero. I was starting at like
Right.
80% knowledge, and then it was just like fine tuning like what they were all they could see my passion in it, so they're just like let us like what do you want the final product to look like, and we will work with you to get that final product there. So having like a team,
That's nice. Yeah, that's
yeah, I
really
think it
nice.
was just seeing my passion like really, and I'm there almost every single day at the bakery. So like everyone on the team knows that there's nothing I'm going to ask them to do that I haven't done myself or aren't willing to do. So like no just knowing like having a boss that's like committed and like there to be in the trenches with you. Like I'm not just coming in being like, all right, we got to make this is our daily production like later guys. Like I'm in there with them. So it helps
Right.
like keep that team spirit and the motivation being like, cool, we're doing something special here, guys.
Well, clearly it's working because, people that are there standing in line to get in and you're selling out early. And I mean, you've been discovered. I guess it's, you're located in what, North Redondo Beach, but
Yeah.
people must be coming from a little wider circle than that to
Yeah.
keep the lines going like that. And for those of you who are listening or watching, go to their website to go to tommyandatticus.com and look at the menu because there's so many cool things on there. There's like what am I seeing here? Like 7 different bagel sandwiches that you do. You also do I gotta ask you this before we run out of time. You also do a gluten-free bread. How do you pull off doing a gluten-free bread in a bakery that's got so much gluten flying around?
Well, we always, I mean, first and foremost, we preface it that we are a bakery that has lots of gluten flying around. So, like, if, like, we do our best, we use, oh, when we're mixing it, we use separate bins and separate containers. So we do our best and to make it as separate for the allergens as possible. But we always just let them know, look around. We order like nearly a ton of flour every week. So like there is flour in the environment. So if you are highly sensitive, like just be known. But other than that, our gluten-free bread, our super seed and nut loaf, it's a take on like a dense German style loaf where
Uh-huh.
so it's we made it so different from like a traditional sourdough bread that it's closer you use it more for like little breakfast snacks where it's because it's made with gluten-free rolled oats, toasted almonds, flax, pumpkin seeds, and it's bound together with psyllium seed husk and chia seeds.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, I've made breads like that, and I like it. But and you do have to slice it thin. It's almost like a Vulcan broth or
Yeah.
something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not like your soft, airy, sandwich breads, but but it but it's delicious. It's got all those great stuff in it. So did you come up with that idea yourself?
That was that event so that bread was inspired by during another one of like my stages was up in San Francisco, Josie Baker bread at the
Oh
Mill.
yeah, we know Joseph. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has a bread that he calls like the adventure bread. So seeing that like I was trying to at Justo we had a gluten-free bread, but it had a separate gluten-free starter, and I was just thinking of the prospect of having to maintain like a separate gluten-free starter and all that. I was like, this is going to be, I just wasn't mentally ready for that challenge. And seeing, experiencing like this adventure bread that Josie Baker bread had, that was something where I was like, okay, I think that's obtainable for us where it's,
How do you leaven it if you're not using your sourdough starter to leaven it?
that's I mean, the crazy part of the bread is that there is no leavener in it. Like it's just it's bit like it's almost we like when we're selling it to the customers we tell like it's closer to having like a granola bar like in like a loaf form because it's all like the gluten-free rolled oats, toasted seeds, uh, and the psyllium husk and the chia seeds, like it's all bound together and you slice it and it's like you get all the nutrients, but it is a dense loaf that it's not airy, like a baked oats almost in a sense.
I I get it. So you don't have any fermentation in that dough.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about like fermenting because I know gluten trying to ferment and proof a gluten-free bread is a tricky set of business because gluten is normally the binder that allows the air to be trapped. So if you're trying to proof a gluten-free loaf, it's like a whole separate challenge. And that's like I've spent the last since almost 10 years now, like figuring out just sourdough bread. I'm like, I don't maybe one day we'll figure out like a light, airy gluten-free bread, but at the moment this is where we're at.
Well, I let me know when you're ready to do that. I got some ideas I can share with you
Okay.
along the lines using the concept that you already got going, how to aerate that. Is there much of a market for that? Are people ordering the gluten free and are you selling it by the loaf? Or are you serving it at the restaurant? Like if they want to sit down and have one of your toasts,
Yeah,
can they get jam and toast?
I mean, it is not it is not like it's not a high volume mover, but there's enough. And so we have one gluten-free loaf, that's our super seed and nut loaf, and then we have one gluten-free tea cake that we offer as like our sweet variety. So uh they're neither one of them are drivers at the restaurant,
Yeah.
but there's enough people coming in that are asking for a gluten-free product. So it's a way it's a nod to our community and our neighborhood where people are wanting it, so we want to provide something for them so they not like if you're coming with a group of 6 people, like, hey, I've heard a lot of great things about Tommy and Atticus, and like it's Saturday and you want to come with your friend but you're gluten free, like we at least want to offer something to that customer. So it's not it's not a huge mover at our bakery, but it still moves. And so that's something. And if you, like you said, if you wanted it on a toast, we're able to work with the customers and make like a avocado toast on the gluten-free bread.
You can. Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, because that way, if somebody's bringing a friend who's gluten sensitive, they can eat along without having to, just watch.
Is watch. Yeah, yeah. So that's why we do like we're whole thing like creating a neighborhood community space was like our biggest motivator for opening up a bakery. Like we wanted a spot. We live actually we live about 4 or 5 blocks away from the bakery. So we wanted to create that neighborhood space that like a bakery is just so great at creating that sense of just like we're walking into warm pastries being baked and everything. And just like we're always trying to find ways to make our bakery like more inclusive and just like having it be like the spot where it's like, hey, we dropped off our kids at the elementary school. Now let's go meet up for a coffee and a pastry.
Yeah, yeah.
Back.
Well, you bake fresh every day. What time do you have to get in to start baking off the loaves that you're going to use that day?
Yeah, so our team and I we're getting in at 3 a.m. So we open at 7 a.m. So
Uh-huh.
uh
Baker's hours.
baker's hours, yeah. So getting in at 3 a.m. that gives enough time to get all the loaves baked off, all the baguettes.
Plus, you got to make You have to boil bagels too, right?
Yeah, so we boil the bagels. So we'll have like 2 people that are working on the baguettes for like the first hour, and then around 4 o'clock, one of the baguette shapers will hop over to bagels and he'll start boiling off the bagels. So we do have a sourdough based bagel that it's mixed and then it's cold fermented overnight in its shaped bagel form, and then we boil it in the water, barley malt, and baking soda mixture.
Yeah.
To boil it, and then bake it off in our rack oven with a little steam injection as well. So
Yeah. A
uh,
little shine on it. Yeah.
yeah, get that shine on it. So yeah, it's a whole bit like bagels. We didn't open our bakery with bagels at operation, so we opened on July. Bagels weren't July 2023. Bagels were introduced in February of 2024. So me and our lead baker, we worked for about 4 to 5 months of just tinkering with our bagel dough recipe, went through maybe 10 or so different recipes, getting it to where we wanted it. And then even with one recipe, figuring out the fermentation time, when we're gonna shape it, how long we're gonna mix it for, all those different factors. So yeah, it's all figuring out that big puzzle piece of a bakery. So it's like, and then once we knew, it's like, how are we gonna fit bagels? Because we were already, how are we gonna fit bagels into the baking schedule? Figuring out how to bake off, because we have our croissants, our pan loaves, scones, all being baked off in the rack ovens. So yeah, it's just a big puzzle piece.
Well, Garrett, one of the things that you're sort of describing is the convergence that's taking place in the pizza world, the baking world, and the baking and the bread and the bagel world. Pizzas, bagels, and breads. They're all kind of coming together, and bakeries are adding bagels and adding pizza, and pizzerias are adding bagels. I mean, it's happening, and it's happening right there in your place. It's sort of in a microcosm,
Yeah.
and some of the bigger places. But there's one other piece. There's one other convergence that's happening, and I have a feeling. And tell me if I'm wrong about this, based on what you said earlier in this conversation, that somewhere in there you're going to be having to make ice cream. Are you thinking about that at all?
No, that is funnily, my wife and I actually were just like a couple weeks ago. Disclaimer, we are ice cream is not coming out at all, but we were like, wow, like, because we close at 3 o'clock, and we were like, that would be a, like, it could lend itself to a summertime afternoon pizza, like, or like ice cream coming out in the afternoon, like,
Yeah.
like so yeah, I've seen that as well on all, like, on the feeds that I follow of pizza and ice cream. Like, I was when I was in Portland.
I'm in Portland, right? What's the place up there that's doing just ice cream and pizza, and it's making Netflix. You know?
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would be the most full circle moment for me, for taking my middle school dream of opening up a pizza parlor, I mean, a ice cream parlor, and then also having.
Well, that's what made me think of it. I wouldn't have thought of it, except that you mentioned it early on, and I thought, my God, that's the next piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? We always, yeah, we're also, when I'm thinking of managing the bakery, like, it's a combination of what is the customer base, what are they asking for, and what are our bakers looking for. So I always open it up to them, because I do my best to try to make it a collaborative environment. So what's something that they're interested in? Is there something that we're not offering right now that, like, really motivates them, and, like, something that they're looking towards? So yeah, I'm not, at the moment, I don't know what, like, the next big product lineup is going to be, but I'm always, like, doing my best to listen to the customer base and our bakers, and try to find, like, the synergy and stuff that we can.
Well, keep me posted on that, because I may jump on a plane if I hear you've got to soft serve or something. You know? But I mean, congratulations! This has grown so beautifully and so organically.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy and Atticus, you're now, as we go to broadcast, because by the time this airs, you will be celebrating your second anniversary in the North Redondo location. Having done, how many years did you do, baking out of your home, out of the cottage?
Yeah, so it was, in total, it was about 7 years of cottage food.
Wow.
2 of those years were 5 of those, like, 2 of those years I was fully just doing. I wasn't working a separate job. It was only in the cottage food space, selling at 3 farmers markets a week. So yeah, it was a lot of time spent by myself in a room, laminating bread,
Learning the craft,
or laminating the croissant dough and everything. So yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful journey that you've been on, and it's so, and I'm so glad to hear, how successful it is. Pace yourself. That's all I can say from somebody who's been there, to make sure that you're keeping that pace. And I love the fact that you are able to close at 3 o'clock, so that you don't, you're not trying to do the 24-hour thing and burning yourself out. So it seems like you and your wife have figured out, how to make it work, as both a successful expression of your craft, but also, giving you a life as well.
Right. Yeah, that's the important part of, like, we love what we do. We love supporting our community, but, like, for us to keep doing this, we have to fill up ourselves, and the team has time to rest. So it's balancing everything, I think, is important.
Yeah, well, work-life balance is one of the games, and not everybody is successful at that. They're great at the cooking side, but and if you watch if you watch The Bear, that's one of the ongoing themes is people trying to find balance in their life. And so I'm glad to hear that right now you've brought it along beautifully and continue to grow it, and I'm sure that we'll see more as you get more ideas and have the team to pull it off. You'll be able to grow this as large as you want to, or keep it as small as you want to.
Yep.
So for those of you who have been listening, we've been talking to Garrett McPerry. He's well, the name of the place is Tommy and Atticus in North Redondo Beach. It's a 1700 Aviation Boulevard, right? And go to the website, check the menu out. Great bagel sandwiches, 2 sandwiches of the day. I didn't even get to talk about what today's sandwiches were. I think I brought them up, but here it is. The veggie sandwich today, I think, is miso mushrooms, toasted sesame seeds, green onions, Parmesan, pickled radish, little gem lettuce, garlic, sesame aioli on the sliced sourdough country loaf. But then the meat sandwich is shaved turkey breast and mortadella. That's a cool combination. And mozzarella cheese and roasted red peppers. Zab's hot honey. What's Zab's? Is that a brand, or is that
that is a brand? Yeah, they use the daddle pepper that was organized in Florida.
So it's different from Mike's hot honey then.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. And then fresh basil, garlic aioli. That sounds like a theme. And then on your sourdough. So always 2 sandwiches, but you got to get there during the right times, right? Because the bagel sandwiches sell out by about from 7:00 to about 10:30, and then
30.
Then the sandwich choices they go on, and they're sold out by 1:30 or so, and then the pizzas come on, and then along the way you can get coffee, drinks, some wonderful looking pastries and cookies and French pastries. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, I'm just astonished at how you've grown this in a very beautiful organic way. So congratulations, Peter, you and DeLauren, and I can't wait to come out and get that try myself. Yeah. Our producer, Jeff Michael, who's a regular of yours there, Jeff, you better get the guest room ready because I feel like I need to come out there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Garrett, thank you again so much for joining us this week on Pizza Quest and for sharing your story. Congratulations. And thank all of you for joining us this week on Pizza Quest. We'll see you at the next episode.